All right, we are live.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our webinar today, our last one before the application deadline. I'm Nora Kelly, and this is my colleague, Alex Grace. We both work for the Society for Science, the nonprofit organization that runs the Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge. You have probably received many emails from us. One second, hold on. Let me pause for one moment, sorry. Okay. Had some feedback there for a second. You've probably received many emails from us and will receive even more over the next few days as our application deadline approaches. We are here to help you every step of the way through the application process. This session is being recorded so that other students who cannot join us today can also hear this information. Before we get started, I want to say congratulations to each of you watching on all the hard work you have done this year by completing a science research project. Earning a nomination to this competition is a huge honor, and we are glad you have taken the final steps in the process by opening your application. And if you haven't opened an application yet, I encourage you to do so. It's not too late. As you're likely aware, the application is due this Wednesday, June 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's just around the corner, but definitely enough time to complete the application. Hundreds of students open and submit their application on the deadline day each year. We do not encourage you to do this. It's very stressful, but we share this to illustrate that it is possible. Today, I'm going to go through a few frequently asked questions. Then Alex will briefly walk us through the application page by page to point out some useful tips and tricks. After that, we will be answering your questions. So feel free to pop your questions into the chat box on the side of the screen.
Nora, we are not seeing the presentation. There we go. Amazing. All right. Go to the next slide. Amazing. So what is the Thermo Fisher Junior Innovators Challenge? Thermo Fisher JIC is the premier national STEM research competition for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. From 2011 to 2022, the competition was known as the Broadcom Masters, but Thermo Fisher Scientific is our current sponsor. In order to qualify, students must first receive a Thermo Fisher JIC nomination by placing in the top 10% of projects at a society-affiliated science fair, which, if you have already done so, congratulations, it's a big deal. The next big step is to complete and submit the online application by June 12th, this coming Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you have not already opened an application, you can do so by going to thermofisherjic.smapply.org. Once you've applied, you're in the running to become one of the top 300 junior innovators and 30 finalists. Now we're going to go through some frequently asked questions.
Okay. Let me see. Are you guys, if I do this, are you guys still seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. All right. So if you get a message that says that your password was invalid, so after you've created an account, you have to provide a fair password that you should have received from your fair to gain full access to the application. This will be task 1, called Confirm Your Fair Password. Each fair password is unique to the fair that you participated in. If you entered the wrong fair password when opening your application, a message will pop up that says that you entered an invalid password. If you see that, you will need to email us and tell us the name of the fair that nominated you, your city, and your state. We can then go into the back end of your application and correct that and reopen your application for you. One of our other next frequently asked questions is, what should I do if my school is not listed? If you are putting your school into part 2 of the application and you don't see it listed, again, please email us at jic@societyforscience.org. In your email, make sure to tell us the name of your school and its address. Once you send us this information, we can add your school to the list, and we'll email you back to let you know when we've done that. And then again, you'll be able to go back into your application and make those edits. Next slide. Trouble uploading forms. The first thing you'll want to do when you're uploading your forms is make sure that they are PDFs. That's the only file type that our system will accept. So the first thing you will need to do is convert your files into a PDF. If you don't know how to do this, you can Google convert document to PDF, and a lot of different websites will come up that can help you with this conversion. Make sure you ask your parent or teacher for help if needed. If you have a hard copy of one of your forms, the easiest thing to do would be if you have a scanner, or at school you have a scanner, you could scan it and then upload it as a PDF. If you don't have a scanner, you can always take a picture of the form with your phone and then email that to yourself or to your parent, and then be able to convert it from that image format into a PDF and upload it into our system. Next slide, science fair paperwork. So we like to see the forms that you might have filled out for your science fair. We want to make sure that all of you were completing your projects in a safe way. So this is one of the last tasks in the application that will ask you a bunch of questions about what kind of safety procedures you did, and then ask you to upload any paperwork. So for this, please email us if you have any specific questions about your paperwork or paperwork from your fair. If you're unable to access any of the forms that you submitted to your fair, please contact whoever approved your project, a teacher or science fair director, and ask them to write a brief letter explaining that they approved your project and followed all proper safety protocols. You can then upload that letter in that paperwork slot. Okay. And next slide. May I submit a different project than the one I was nominated for? No, you need to submit the project that you completed at your local fair that you were nominated with. This also means that you cannot add any new ideas or make any other changes to your project. If you conducted more trials that were exactly the same as your original project, exactly the same procedure, and you want to include that additional data, that is fine, but you cannot change your methods or procedures in any way. And next slide. Sorry, just toggling between two screens here. When is the application deadline? As you should know by now, as we've already said, the application is due this Wednesday, June 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If you submit before June 12th, you can always go back into your application and make edits up until the deadline. If you do edit a submitted application, remember that you need to go back and hit the Mark as Complete button on any task you have edited. If you have a team project, each team member must submit separate applications and answer each question individually.
All right.
All right. And the next
Yeah,
thing we're going to do,
we're gonna
I'll
walk.
turn it over to Alex to walk through the application. And we'll
All
take
right.
questions at the end. So feel free to keep posting questions in the chat box.
Yes. All right, we are going to walk through some elements of the application now. All right, so when you are in your account, you will see a couple of things that'll be useful to you. in filling out your application. So under the Pages tab, you will see resources. This has a list of links to the application guide, official rules, parent guardian permission form. This is the form that needs to be signed by a parent and guardian and submitted in the last step of the application. This also has videos walking through each part of the application in case you want a refresher, in addition to recordings of our past webinars, and the recording for this webinar will also go on this page when we are done here today. Right, and the FAQ has answers to many of the same questions that we just went over in written format in case you want to review them later while or have any questions as you are finishing up your application or beginning to work on it. So under My Account, you'll find, so when you started an application, you needed to verify the email address. That's how we know that we can send emails to you and make sure that this account belongs to you. So if you never received an email saying, asking you to verify your email, you want to go into My Account. And from here, take a second to load. Let's see. Well, within My Account, you can update your email address to be a different email. We would recommend, if you're using an email address through your school, to either use a parent email address or a personal one to you not affiliated with your school if you haven't been getting our emails so far. Sometimes schools have firewalls for email inboxes and they won't let emails from us come through. So to make sure that you get access to your application and everything is verified, make sure you use an email that you can access and you can verify in order to submit your application. So to get back to your application, if you navigate away from that page, you can hit My Applications right up here at the top. So when you're in your application, this one is submitted, but we will take a look at some of these tasks. So in Fair Password, if you are here and you don't know what your Fair Password is, or you've entered it wrong and you've gotten the message that your Fair Password is invalid, like Nora said, email us at jic@societyforscience.org and we can help you out with that. We recommend, when you're looking at the application, because there's a lot of parts to it, starting with part 1 and part 5. Part 1 is all about your information, your parent information, school information, just basic. How can we contact you? What's your name? Who are you? And part 5 is all about personal interests. I will review some changes that happened in part 5 recently due to some backend issues with the application. If you have already submitted or completed this part of the application or submitted your application, we recommend that you go back into part 3 and part 5 and review your answers. There were some technical issues, and we just want to make sure that your answers show up as you want to. And part 5 is all about your personal interests outside of your project. For part 3 and part 4, part 3 is all about your project. It's step-by-step asking you, basically like you would in a judging interview, to tell us all about your project. We'd recommend for part 3 and part 4 to write the answers to those questions in a separate document and save them and review them there. Just in case of any technical issues. It shouldn't delete any of your work, but just in case it does, to save your time, write the answers to all those questions in a separate document, save them, review them there, and then copy and paste your answers back into the application before you submit. For the visual aid, there are all the rules and guidelines for the visual aid are right here. So it's easy to reference. The most important thing to know about your visual aid is that this document should be readable as if it, when it's uploaded, as if it was printed out on a regular piece of printer paper. So we don't want to have to zoom in to see anything on your visual aid. All text that's on it, so you can have infographics, if you have graphs, if you have pictures of things that you have used, your experimental setup, or something that you created, or a tool you used. Any labels to those things, any text needs to be in at least a 16-point font so that it can be read clearly. And no hyperlinks and no pictures of poster boards. They'll be hard to read, or paragraph, or anything that has paragraphs of text should be included in the visual aid. And there is a section in the rules that refers to things you should not include in your visual aid if you want any more clarification about that. All right, so science fair paperwork. Upload what you have. If you don't have it anymore, or any of your documentation anymore, you just need a signed form from the adult or signed letter from an adult that give you approval and can talk about the safety precautions you took. If you were not asked to fill out forms by your fair or your school, I would recommend having somebody who supervised your project, whether that's a teacher or a research mentor or a parent, just write up a quick letter about what you did, how you chose to do it, why it was safe, and why they gave their approval, and sign it and upload it there. That also works. And then, so that's sort of high level. If you have already completed a task or are in the process of completing a task, or if you've already submitted the application, you are able to edit any part of the application up until the application deadline on June 12th. So when you're working through a section of the application, if you see this half-filled circle or 50%, that means that it hasn't been marked as complete yet. When you are done with a section, what you should do is mark as complete. So when you go back to your application, it will mark that that part of the application is complete. If you want to edit something in a section that's already been marked as complete, you can click these three little dots at the top right and hit edit. And then you can make any edits you need. And remember, when you're done editing, make sure to save your work and mark as complete. The same thing if you have already submitted your application. This application we're looking at has actually already been submitted. When you go to your homepage, you can click view and then edit anything that you need to. We'd recommend downloading your whole application at the end to review it in PDF format to make sure everything's complete. And if you need any help editing any parts of your application, we can send you written directions as well as to how to edit it after you have submitted or completed a task. And so now we're going to take a few moments to look through the questions you've been asking and start answering. Oh, you're mute, Nora.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. And we've been getting quite a few questions about the visual aid. So I'll just highlight a little bit what Alex has mentioned about that. So as I'm answering questions, feel free to pop things into the chat box there. So the visual aid, you can have text on your visual aid. The text should be just to explain any of the graphics, any pictures or graphs or things that you have put into the visual aid. They should not be elaborating on any of the questions in the application or providing additional information outside of what is in those infographics. We do not have examples of visual aids that we can share with you. But again, that's kind of your chance to any pictures that you might have of something that you created, any of your charts or graphs, pictures of you in the lab or at school doing the research project. Feel free to include any of those types of things. And if you're a team project, you can have the same visual aid since you would have a lot of the same charts and graphs and photos, but you don't have to have the same visual aid. And hold on, let me pull up what other questions we have coming in here. Other questions to do. Okay. If I'm seeing a couple questions come in that are very specific to projects or errors that you might be getting in SurveyMonkey Apply, please email us about those, again, at jic@societyforscience.org. Those might be things that we need to put in some sort of help ticket to address, or might have something that we need to do on the back end of your application, or can answer on a more individual level any questions you might have. Let's see. Someone asking if the top 30 is included inside the top 300 or is counted separately. So yes, the top 300 will be announced in early September. So we have about 2,000 students that will actually enter the competition and submit an application. And out of those 2,000, 300 will be chosen as the top 300 innovators. And then out of those top 300, 30 will be chosen as the top finalists and will be given an all expenses paid trip to DC, where they can present their research project and go through a final round of judging for final awards. And let's see, I see Alex is answering a few questions in here, so apologies if I also answer them. Let's see. So in terms of paperwork, science fair paperwork, please upload whatever paperwork you have. Often fairs will use the ISEF forms. Some of them might just kind of have their own general parent permission. Yes, we followed safety protocols type form. If you just have an email or a letter from your teacher explaining what kind of supervision your teacher provided at the school, please upload anything you have that gives us more ideas about the safety and protocols you used for your project. Okay, let's see what else.
Another one that I'm seeing is questions about optional questions. So if something is marked as optional, it is truly optional. That will not impact how your application is viewed. If something does not apply to you, you don't need to fill it out. And yes, your forms and visual aid all need to be uploaded in PDF format. The system will not accept anything else.
And we do not have a judging rubric that we share. The judges are looking at the application. They're looking at not just your research project, but also the way you do answer some of those essay questions, and kind of more of a holistic view of you as a young STEM research scientist. There are no interviews. It is just the application that you submit at this point. And once you submit your application, you will be considered an entrant of the competition, which means that you are now an alumni of the Society for Science Thermo Fisher Scientific Junior Innovators Challenge. And later in the summer, you will get a fun package in the mail with a t-shirt and some other cool things, but you have to submit your application in order to get those. What else do we have coming in, Alex?
Let's see. So after you've submitted the form, you have submitted your application, you don't need to take any further steps. You can submit the same visual aid as your partner. Yeah, all of the forms you have, if you have ISEF forms and forms from your fair, upload all of that. It's all useful to us. Let's see.
I do see another team question, so I'll just address that one more time. That team projects of up to 3 members are eligible to apply. Not all team members have to apply. So if you're in a team, you and your best friend, and your best friend does not want to apply to the competition, that's okay. You can still submit an application. If you both want to apply, great. You will not necessarily progress as a team. So sometimes one team member might be selected as a top 300 innovator or a top 30 finalist, and the other team member might not. Sometimes both of them or all 3 of them will. So the team might not necessarily progress together. and you must each fill out your application individually. So you each need to submit an application and your answers should be different. So again, it's okay if your visual aid is the same, but and for instance, your kind of abstract or the overview of your project is very similar, but your essay questions and other things like that should be your own words and should be answered separate from your teammates. So yes, a partner project can use the same hypothesis. You'll be presenting the same research project that you won your nomination at your local fair with. And ideally, you would have the same title. Ideally, you're using the same title again as what you used at your science fair. If you realize it maybe doesn't encompass your project completely and you want to tweak it a little bit and change a few words, that's okay, but it really should be the same title, project, hypothesis, methods, all of that as what you won the nomination with at your local science fair. And a question, do we have to upload any forms or letters if we didn't do any research with human participants, vertebrate animals, or hazardous chemicals? If you have forms, even if you didn't work with any of those things, yes, you should upload them. Whatever you have from your fair, whatever you filled out, please upload. As much information as we can have, the better. If you don't have anything from that, like we already suggested, talk to your teacher, your fair director, whoever mentored you, your parent, and have them attest that you did follow some basic safety protocols for your project, and you can upload that instead.
Seeing things here too. So the entire application, the project information, your essay questions is all evaluated all together. So all the things you submit in your application, visual aid, project information, everything you fill out, that is what the evaluators are looking at. They're looking at the whole package. They don't have any other information outside of what's been submitted in the application.
And if you've been nominated at both fairs or at multiple fairs, there is a spot in the application where you can let us know about that. And in terms of paperwork, you can upload paperwork from both if you have both. If you just have paperwork from one fair, whichever one it was, you can upload just from one fair as well. And another point about the visual aid that we didn't mention already is that you should not be uploading a picture of your poster board, either a virtual rendition of it or a picture of your actual poster board from your fair. That is too hard for the judges to read. Again, as Alex mentioned, it should be something that if they were to print out your visual aid on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, they could read everything on it. So a picture of your poster board is going to be, the print will be too small for the judges to actually get any information from that. And so they won't actually review that page. So please do not submit pictures of your poster boards. Yes, your Form 1B will count even if the local and state fair did not sign it. If it just has your signature and your parent's signature, that is appropriate. We accept that for JIC as well as for ISEF.
So for paperwork, even if you're not, you don't have like the 1A, 1B ISEF forms, if you do have any paperwork, select yes and upload everything that you have. All of it is useful. And so in that last section of the application, that signed parent guardian permission slip covers, so I guess there's been some confusion and I understand this. So for the ethics statement, we want you to read and review that. Having a parent and yourself sign the parent guardian permission form confirms that you have read the rules and agreed to the ethics statement. So that last section of the application, We just need you to upload the parent guardian permission form, and that covers your agreement to the ethics statement as well.
Okay, I think we'll take just one or two more questions. So the permission slip and the rules stuff to sign is all in the application. You'll be able to download those documents, sign them, and then upload them into your application. If your project was purely done on the computer and you don't have any type of documentation to submit, that's okay. If you didn't, if there really were no risks with your paperwork, that's okay if you don't have paperwork to submit. But if you have anything from your fair, you should submit that to us. Okay. I want to give just a few pieces of final advice before we wrap up. As a reminder, the application is due this Wednesday, June 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you live in a different time zone, please take that into account. It is 8 p.m. Eastern time. Something I would suggest as you're going through the application is to type your answers, especially to the essay questions, in a Word document. This way you can save it. You could do spell check. You can count your words. You can kind of keep track of what you're saying. You could have your parents or your teacher read your response and give you some feedback if you would like. That way, if your computer were to crash or something, you're not going to lose all of your answers. So type everything up in a Word document and remember to save it. You are allowed to have your parents or your teacher see your answers, read them through, help you with them, but this should come from you. These should be your answers, and the judges are pretty good at sniffing that kind of thing out and knowing if parents helped too much with a student's application. Work on a section of the application here and there. There are quite a few sections, but it would surprise you, I think, how quickly you can get through the application if you just do a few sections each night, and kind of break it up for yourself. I also want to urge you not to take this too seriously and to just try. I know it can feel like a lot of pressure that either you're putting on yourself or is coming from external sources. Many of our finalists tell us how surprised they were that they were named finalists. So you never know, it could be you. So just try your best, give yourself a chance, and complete your application and submit it. If you have any questions at all, I know there's probably some that have now come into the chat that we didn't get to. Please email us at jic@societyforscience.org. We have a lot of us in that inbox every day up through the close of the application, trying to answer all of those questions and help you as best we can. And we also have these videos. So we have our YouTube channel. You can rewatch this video. We have one that's with some of our alumni who talk about their experience with the application. We have one that's all about tips and tricks that goes into a few of the things we've said today, but in even more detail. So feel free to watch those and get some answers there as well. So we are now going to conclude our webinar. If we didn't get to your question, again, please email us at jic@societyforscience.org. We are here to help you and to make sure that you submit that application and have the chance to potentially be one of our top finalists. You can always rewatch this webinar and our other webinars, as I've already said. You've already made it this far with your science fair research project. It's very impressive, and we hope that you'll take this next opportunity and submit your application by the deadline, by this Wednesday, June 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll never know what you can accomplish unless you try. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Right, I have ended the stream.